leading into, you've got this education, then you reduce the parents, then you have the family structure as a whole. So you destroy the Christian family structure or the traditional Christian family structure. And so I've always said God's order of the family is the patriarchy. It's the patriarchy order. And you have Christ on top, then you've got the man, the woman, and the child, and it's the job of the man to protect his family. But when you create a society where not only do you have the alphabet agenda going on, where you've got women with women and men with men and trans and all that stuff they want to talk about. There's thousands of all these different genders. We're not going to get into that, but you have that. But then you also have the fact of, again, you have babies raising babies. There's no responsibility. It's just they're just moving on, and so you have all these families getting raised without fathers and everything like that. So you've destroyed the family structure, and the child is not getting what it needs from both a mother and a father. And now you start seeing this just anti-authority, this self-righteous. There's a list. There's a scripture that's talking about you will see kids, and it's just all these things, haughtiness and arrogance and everything like that. So what do you see going on with the destruction of the family structure and just in general around the world right now?
You know, the sad thing is not only do we see it in the world, in the way that the world thinks, because the world is not going to think biblically. Jesus said in Matthew 4:4, we don't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So, we take our instructions and guidance from Scripture, because God obviously created male one. Jesus said it in Matthew 19. In the beginning, He created male and female, man and woman, to be married and for life. That things happen in the sense of divorce. We'll talk about that later. But you have this family structure that God knows as well is in as well. We say patriarchal. Oh man, come on, Zach. What world are you living? That's so antiquated. Patriarchal?
It's offensive. Yeah.
I mean, you can be.
I hate women. Hate women.
Exactly. But so here, look, I got 3 daughters. Okay, they're all 20 and up, and so I was outnumbered in my family. But you know what? My goal, never once, ever did I look at my wife and say, "Thou shalt submit." I was like, hey, you know what? If I, as imperfect as I am, if I seek to love and to serve and to give my life as much as I can, not again, so imperfectly, I understand. Jesus said in Ephesians 5, if we love our wives as Christ loved the church, then God will work on their heart to follow that leadership. And often, certainly, even in 1 Peter chapter 3, it's an element of faith where God has called the wife to follow the leadership of her husband, even if he's an unbeliever that's disobedient to the word. Because Peter says, hey, wife, you don't need to fear. Because, I've been a pastor, man. So I've been in situations constantly where we have this exact situation. And the wife's like, well, I can't trust him. I go, well, why not? Well, because he doesn't know the Bible. And I said, okay. Well, he's going to lead us in bad ways. He's got bad. I said, well, there are times when certainly we all make bad decisions. But that's why God says here to you, your trust first and foremost is in God himself. It says, do not fear in 1 Peter 3. And so I said, God is saying that to you because God has your back. You think God is worried about what this chump, even if your husband, that he's going to take you somewhere and God doesn't want, you're God's daughter. And so when you step back and we think about patriarchy, there's no doubt that the world hates the idea that, again, no matter how we phrase it, even in the church, so you see this in the church, the egalitarian versus the complementarian. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, if you go to Genesis chapter 1, Adam was made prior to Eve. We could talk to God about that, why he did it that way. He just did. And it's not that he's more valuable, or because they were both sinless. And it's not that. So let's bring it back for a second. Going back to this structure, the family structure, you said it right. And for years, 80s, 90s, they tried to say that men or women have no differences. They're equal in every single way. Now, certainly spiritually, men and women are equal. Of course they are. You can have there's more women in the church than there are men, and so in the sense of a spiritual aspect, I saw this often that I saw the women serving far more than the men did in that regards. So it's not a spirituality thing, but what you do have is the fact of the matter is men and women are different. And so God says, okay, men, you're going to lead the family or lead them with godliness and love. But he has a set of gifts. We can look at it biologically. Again, a biological male will never have a child, even though you might have somebody else that pretending to be a man. But biologically, even in the very nature of biology itself, you have differences between a man and a woman. And so that also comes into play at being a parent. Women are just more nurturing, generally speaking. They're tender and nurturing and caring. And men are kind of maybe more of a disciplinarian or authoritarian or strict or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You always have exceptions. But the fact is, what God is saying is, what I'm creating here with a male and a female, different. They complement one another, and they bring a balanced approach. So if you take a modern family today, and the traditional family of a male and a female, and you have two females, they're missing out. God's like, by definition, you're missing out on a male essence, whatever that is, a masculine essence. In the same way, if it was two guys and there was no female present. So they need to destroy that. And I'll tell you, man, I mean, over the last 5-10 years, I cannot believe of how fast it's happening.
Yeah, it's like it says about the speeding up of these end times. It's the tacos, not tacos like the food, but tacos the tachometer, and we're not going to slow down. We're not going to pause. We're just going to keep gaining speed, and so we're seeing that speed just gain. And yeah, you were talking about the difference between the physiological thing. I have a video. I don't have it ready, but there's a video where it's at a museum, and it has the pelvic structure of the woman and the pelvic structure of a man, and it has a silver ball about the size of a baby's head, and you can push them down. And when you push down the male version, it hits the bone. It can't go through, but then you can just easily push the ball down through the woman. So God designed it specifically. Well, the woman has the hip, the pelvic structure to pass a baby through. The man doesn't. Yep. So it's right there. It's by biology. They can say, well, this is what science. Well, that's what science says. My God, who created science, designed it this way. And so you've got that. And then you were talking also about the difference between the parenting type of thing. And it's true, because my best example is if you have a kid and there's a hot stove there, the mother is going to say, okay, don't touch that. It's really hot. You're going to burn yourself. And the mother's going to try and stop the kid from doing it. The dad's going to say, touch it. See what happens.
You nailed it.
And it's going to burn. Okay, now you're never going to touch that again, are you? And yeah, I got it. And that's, the kid needs both of that. It needs both of that parenting structure. And right now, kids are getting, luckily, if they're lucky, even one of those, because again, you've got the parents that don't care anymore. So yeah, I mean, they have destroyed the family structure.
So let's bring up something, because I like people who bring up objections, and so they oftentimes, this happens in the church. It's like, well, would you rather have a child being adopted by two males or two females, whatever, versus being put in the foster care system or in a traditional broken home with two male and female? And you're like, look, if we can draw up exceptions or humanistic thinking on any of those, but the fact of the matter is, God said a male and a female, father and mother, honor your father and mother. There's at the end of the day, I'm going to say, look, can a child be raised in that and come out as a good citizen of society? Of course. We're not going to reject that. But what I will say is, there's something missing, and it's not following the biblical order. And will there be consequences in that person's thinking, that child's thinking, or in how their future generations. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's, yeah, they could grow up to be a great citizen, but there will always be something missing.
Mhm.